It's story time. The Frog Prince. In olden times, when wishing still did some good, there lived a king whose daughters were all beautiful, but the youngest was the most beautiful of them all. Every evening, the youngest princess would put on her bonnet and clogs and take a walk by herself in the woods. She would come to a cool spring of water and sit there. Every time she would wear a golden ball in her hand, which was her favorite plaything, and she would toss it up into the air and catch it as it fell. One evening, she threw it up so high that she missed catching it. So, it fell to the ground and rolled into the water. The princess followed it with her eyes, but the ball disappeared. The well was so deep that she could not see its bottom. Then she began to cry. She cried louder and louder, and she could not console herself. At that moment, someone called out on her. "What's the matter with you, princess? Why do you weep so bitterly?" She looked around and saw a frog. "Oh, it's you, frog," she said. "I'm crying because my golden ball has fallen into the well." "Be still and stop crying," answered the frog. "I can help you. But what will you give me if I bring back your plaything?" "Whatever you want, dear frog," she said. "My clothes, my pearls, and precious stones, and even the golden crown that I'm wearing." To that, the frog said, "I do not want your pearls, jewels, and fine clothes. But if you will love me and let me sit next to you at your table and eat from your golden plate and drink from your cup and sleep in your bed, if you will promise me this to me, then I'll dive down and bring your golden ball back to you." "What nonsense this silly frog is talking," thought the princess. "He can never even get out of the spring. He cannot be a companion to a human." So she said to the frog, "I promise all of that to you if you just bring back the ball to me." As soon as the frog heard her say yes, he put his head down and dived deep under the water. He paddled back up a short time later with the golden ball in his mouth and threw it onto the grass. The princess was overjoyed when she saw her beautiful plaything once again, so she picked it up and ran off. The frog called after her, "Stay, princess, and take me with you as you said." But she did not stop to hear a word. The next day, just as the princess had sat down to dinner, she heard a strange nose tap, tap, splash, splash, and soon afterward there was a gentle knock at the door, and a little said, "Princess youngest, open the door for me." She ran to see who was outside. She opened the door, and the frog was sitting there. Frightened, she slammed the door shut and returned to the table. The king saw that her heart was pounding and asked, "My child, why are you afraid? Is there a giant outside the door who wants to get you?" "Oh no," she answered. "It's a disgusting frog." "What does the frog want from you?" said the king. And the princess told him what happened. The king said, "What you have promised you must keep. Go and let the frog in." She went and opened the door, and the frog hopped in, then followed her up to her chair. He sat there and called out, "Lift me up next to you. Now push your golden plate closer so we can eat together. Now I'm tired. Carry me upstairs and put me into your bed." Against her will, the princess did all of those things for 3 nights. But when the princess awoke on the following morning, she was astonished to see, instead of a frog, a handsome prince gazing on her with the most beautiful eyes she had ever seen and standing at the head of her bed. She was so confused that she ran off to her father and told him what had happened. Then the king told his daughter how the prince had been enchanted by a wicked witch, and that she alone could have rescued him from the well, and that tomorrow they would go together to his kingdom to be wed. The princess was surprised and happy at the same time, so she went back to her prince in her room. The next morning they took leave of the king and got into the coach with 8 horses. They all set out full of joy and merriment for the prince's kingdom, which they reached safely, and they lived happily many great years. To support us, please subscribe to Storytime.